Here from the raw beauty of the American Middle West, we are bringing you Legal Legends of the Hoosier State, brought to you by the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association. We're bringing you a podcast where we explore the lives and the careers of those lawyers who helped found our organization and those who have helped grow it into what it has become today. Today we are blessed on episode 2 to bring you Charlie Vaughan Sr. And just as important to point out today, we have a guest host, my dear friend Bob Johnson, who has looked up to Charlie as a mentor his entire career. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 2 of Legal Legends of the Hoosier State. Here we have a very special guest today. His name is Charlie Vaughan. He began practicing in the 1950s. He was president of the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association in 1966. He's had a prolific career that we're going to hear all about. But to make this episode even a little more special, we have someone who has looked up to you, Mr. Vaughan, as a mentor his entire career. I know I've heard stories about you my entire career from the fella sitting next to me.
He's my favorite person.
and that's Bob Johnson. Bob, say hello.
Thank you, Joe. Hello.
All right. Bob, welcome to the podcast. And I just want to point out that Bob is set to be the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association president in 2026. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Vaughan, you were president in 1966. That means there's going to be precisely 60 years separating your administration, Mr. Vaughan, from that of Mr. Johnson. We're a little worried about Bob's, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
That proves time flies.
It surely does. So, Mr. Vaughan, tell us a little bit. Tell us how you became a lawyer. Why'd you want to be a lawyer?
Well, my father was a lawyer before me, and I went to Indiana and I played basketball and was into athletics and into having a good time. And then finally I got around to graduating, and I didn't want to graduate, and I went to my counselor. That's a funny story. He said he thought he'd never have the problem where I had the grades and everything to graduate. And he says, you got to graduate. I said, well, I don't want to graduate. I could get another year, get a year at law school, and I think if I get out of here without a degree, well, he said, you have to graduate. I said, well, I'm going to read schedule. That's the only thing I ever studied for, was read the schedule. I went through IU with one notebook. And if it was in there, it was going to be on the final. Because the whole course would be one page. So anyhow, I was not the best student in the world, but I had a good time. And so anyhow, long story short, I came back in the next day and said, here, last 30 days last semester must be spent on campus. I said, write me care of Purdue. He says, I knew you'd do something. And so I came up to Purdue and played golf. So that's about the size of that. And so I think that answers that question.
So, but what drew you to the type of law? Well, let me ask you this. Looking back over your career, how would you describe, if somebody said, Mr. Vaughan, what kind of law do you practice? What do you say?
Oh, I'd have said trial lawyer.
Okay.
Because I would go to my dad's office, and I'd go to trials with him. In the summer, I worked 2 or 3 summers there with him in the office. Didn't know what I was doing, but I was there quite a bit. And so I've been to several trials with him from start to finish. And then we would talk about evidence, and trials. He taught me what you shouldn't do. Don't ever do X, Y, or Z, And I'd watch, and we'd always ride in the car back. He'd discuss it, or going down. He was going to do a surgeon or somebody cross-examine. He'd tell me what he wanted to get accomplished, and then we'd discuss, did he accomplish it or not, and back, and how did he do it. And so he taught me a lot about how to act in the courtroom and what not to do. More of that than anything. All the lawyers go up and they score a point and they look at the jury. I never gave them that option. I never looked at them. I acted like, you're there to judge what happens, and if I was trying to size up the jury, it was obvious when they were looking at something else. Otherwise, they thought I never looked at them. Of course, I did when I did final argument and the like, but every time I scored a big point, I never made a big deal out of it or looked at the jury. Did you get that? I thought, that was a no-no in my mind. I think I don't want to be friends, but I want to be friends, but I don't want to let you know I want to be friends. But that gets to it. I suppose another point. I had my own ideas. What about the courtroom? But I knew pretty much how to try a case before I even went to law school. I knew what to do in front of a jury. Didn't know anything else, but I knew what to do in a jury, and I knew what was good and what was bad. And and that was one thing. I didn't hardly ever look at the jury, and I hardly ever didn't have an answer right now. You'd never see me looking through notes. Did I do this or do that? And so they always thought I was well prepared because I never looked at anything. They thought, he doesn't have to look at anything, And I'd point out if it's saying to you, I'd point out if you're going to ask a question to the other counsel, aren't you prepared? I'd be real kind about it. But I kind of like to needle attorneys because I could get under somebody's skin. That was just fun for me.
So you bring up an interesting point, Mr. Vaughan, about not looking at the jury. Because I think, Bob, tell me about your experience with Mr. Vaughan, because every time you've talked to me about him in the courtroom, it's almost as if you've talked about that he's the only one in the courtroom when Mr. Vaughan is there. So how are you making that connection with these jurors that everyone else is seeing without even looking at them?
I've won a lot of cases, I think, in the first 7 minutes of a trial. I wait and see if they've done something wrong, where I jump on them and try to make a liar out of them immediately. And from that time on, I'm in control. And I always felt I got to get control of this jury, by getting control of the courtroom. And the best example I can remember, a big case where we got $3 million and the Supreme Court took it away from me.
Well, that's how you know you're a plaintiff's lawyer.
Yeah.
I think all of us sitting here
of course,
got a great verdict, and then we say, the court of appeals
to this
took
day,
it
I
away.
say that was the worst opinion that I've ever seen.
Well, of course, Bob and I have no comment on that.
But it was a death case, not a rape case of a girl. Sad. The father, big industrialist, had a lot of money, and we're trying in a little town, and so. And he had, these allegations with the raping of his daughter, which was a horrible thing to start with. And but anyhow, to talk about how to run a courtroom. So I go in. We're sitting there, and it's all planned. He comes in, and it was 2 rows behind you. It rose up like a basketball arena, practically, the courtroom. And all of this big commotion's made as his kids come in. His own, oh, Dad, and they're loving, and oh, he's so sweet. And so I observe it. Don't say a word. And so he's got a woman that's sitting at the jury table before it even started. She's sitting there, and I've already got this other thing that's happened. And I said, Judge, we got to level the playing field here. I said, they've got 4 lawyers over there, and they're in my space. I said, I want half of this courtroom, and I don't want them in my space. I'm not getting in theirs, but they're not getting in mine. We're going to get that straight. It's going to be either a level playing field or it isn't. And here I'm kind of giving a lesson to the judge on what's going to happen. and so he tells them to move over, and then they got to move the church. And then I said, the next thing I said, I understand you got to be a member of the bar to sit inside the bar. And I said, I don't think that woman's a member of the bar. Oh, well, they're making some excuse, you know. I said, she is not a member of the bar. She's just a jury consultant. And the judge says, is that so? Well, no, when they start him, and
Oh, sure.
you know, so anyhow, I said, he says, you got to sit behind. You can't sit there. And so we haven't started yet. You know? and so I get that our boundaries set, and then I call my first witness the defendant. They thought he'd be the last. It's going to be a 2 weeks trial anyhow. I call him.
You called the defendant as the very first witness of this 2-week trial?
Yep, right there. Boom. They got him there. And I said, there was a big commotion made up here. Everybody swarming around you. Your son, 2 sons, and you know, it was like, welcome home, Dad. I said, that was all. You know, wasn't that a little bit of a show? I said, like, you spent the weekend with him preparing for trial. What did that woman, that jury consultant, did she kind of put you up to this is what to do? Show loving to this man whom I don't think very much of, you know. and so we got that established. And so finally I ended with him. I said, as a matter of fact, how much have you paid her? Well, he didn't know. $25,000? Well, he didn't know. I said, okay, you don't know. But I said, why did you hire her? He said, I don't know, somebody recommended it. I said, you don't even know who? No, don't know who. I said, do you know what she hired her for? And he says, I guess to help with the trial. I said, no, didn't you hire her to help persuade the jury so you could win? He says, well, I guess so. I said, no further questions. That's the way we start. Yeah, that was it. Well, I mean, not for the trial. I mean, that was it with him.
No, that's what I mean. That was all you did with him?
That was all. Already proved that he was hired this girl, paid her $25,000 to try to influence the jury. That was my point, you know. I let him go. Well, I got him later. I mean, I had him on cross-examination. I had this. They got this famous lawyer in that case. Or he had this clinic, and he was getting all these men off of I forget the name, big jury trials, national stuff. And so I got the testimony he'd done in other cases, and anyhow, I had him on the stand 3 days. He came in, he was going to be great, and I told the jury what he was going to say.
Was this their expert?
This was their expert. Right. Yeah. He got, I think, $40,000 fee for his testimony.
In what year?
I don't know what year it was.
Barnes, I think that was late 80s.
Yeah, I think so.
Grand in the late 80s, man.
Yeah.
That expert ended up later suing you.
Yeah. He sued me in Chicago for ruining his reputation.
For defamation, and if I remember right, that case was dismissed due to the great work of your lawyer. That was me.
Oh, that was Bob Johnson?
I think it was.
Oh, my.
But
you were interviewed in a 60 Minutes episode in the Australia version. And you said, I find it, I don't know why I forget his name. They called him Dr. Bubbles.
Yeah.
The expert?
Yeah, the expert had been accused of pedophilia himself.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
And anyway, he testified that the daughter was making all of this up. And obviously the jury didn't agree
Hmm.
that the father did, in fact, commit these horrible things on his daughter. But, the expert testified she made it all up. And I think you were interviewed by 60 Minutes. You said, I don't know how the guy sleeps at night. He got sued for defamation.
What else is going to happen here? Now, back to what I had a point to make about that.
Control the court.
Control the
Control the
courtroom.
courtroom.
Control the courtroom.
Yeah, because this gets funny. So the noon, they have the noon break, and I came back, and I think they've moved over into my space. Your Honor, I want to point out that I think they've moved over into my space, and it was probably this much.
Let the record reflect he's showing approximately 6 inches.
So, the lead lawyer, he gets up and says, "That's not true. Nobody did anything." And the court reporter says, "Yes, they did move it. I was here." Now, how lucky can you get? He's a liar. There's no good liar lawyer in your fancy blue suit. I kind of hate these. And they're all dressed the same, got their suspenders. That's ready meat for me.
What would you wear?
I'd wear. I always. I don't know. I never gave a hell of a lot of thought to what I wore. If I was really down in Williamsport, I made sure I didn't have a very good suit on, because I'd have a whole farmer jury, and I got along with them fine. That's another story. Everything's a story, and but anyhow, when she said that, I thought, how perfect is this,
That's incredible.
And then that lawyer, we broke him, and after 3 days, he wanted off there, and he was absolutely destroyed. But I had every case he'd had and how he testified and what he said, Kelly.
And this is long before we had computers that aggregated all this stuff.
Oh yeah, you
So
had
how
to
did
go
you
find.
go about getting that stuff?
Well, I put Kelly on it.
Kelly is his daughter.
My daughter,
Who's also
a lawyer, and she dug up everything he'd done. We had a whole file on how he testified in these other cases,
Mhm.
and we broke up that firm, and okay, we need another.
Well, hold on, Mr. Vaughan. Tell us tell us about your early memories of ITLA. Tell us about its importance. What did you see early on and kind of the early days?
What I saw in the early days, they didn't really have a trial lawyers association that my dad belonged to, and early on I saw that they had the trial lawyers, and I thought I want to join that, see what they're doing, And Howard Young told me to join it. I said, okay, I'll join it, and so I joined it, and I saw that you got all these lawyers together, and I thought this is a great thing, because my dad had a couple of lawyers he talked with, but he didn't go to the great annual meetings we have and things. He didn't have that, and
When did those start?
I don't know, because they already started when I was
Gotcha.
there. Yeah, and but I saw that you could meet these other lawyers and learn from it, and they have a nice seminars, and so I got interested in that, and then I ran a seminar. I don't know what year, because we had the pipe break down there at the office, and I had the whole program, and it was funny. My wife and I ran it. I think the fee was $25, and I had 8 lawyers, and I had each one. You pick the subject you want to talk about. 15 minutes, no longer than 20, and we ran that thing. Come in, say what you want to get said, and everybody liked the format that way, because we didn't have one guy taking an hour and a half. Yeah, I started that.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's brilliant because after an hour of anybody talking,
That's right. You
It's
get
tough.
to yeah. So, but the association, I thought it was great because I met these other lawyers, which I wouldn't have met otherwise, and knew, and then they'd have me on the stage and ask me things, and I'd participate when they asked me to, which was frequently, and but I mainly I suppose when I analyzed what I did, I felt that I got control of the courtroom. One way or another, I'd find a way to get it, and in the strangest way, it just. But and the other thing.
Give me an example when you say the strangest way.
Well, like, how did I know the court reporter was going to say, "Yeah, I was here. He moved it."
Yeah.
I mean, that comes from heaven, It's things like that.
I gotcha.
And but I always like to make them think I'm totally prepared, and I think the way to look prepared is don't fumble through notes. Don't fumble through anything. I never looked at anything. Most times it was up here, or Bob would tell me something. They whispered something. Okay, I'll take this subject, but I wanted to prepare like I'm always ready. And they thought, well, that lawyer knows what he's doing, and the other guy's he doesn't know what he's doing. And you do that just by always being ready. My cross-examinations, I think some of the best cross-examinations I had were 10 minutes, and some of them, the one 3 days. It depended. But if I got it and get it quick, I like that, and I learned that.
I always thought juries appreciate much more you just getting to the point. We don't.
Well, when I first started, you'll love this. You didn't have to exchange witnesses. It was a free-for-all. And I'm doing a death case for the secretary in Monticello, whose husband been at a New Year's Eve party, and he was coming home about midnight or 1, and there'd been some ice on the road, and so about 2 blocks down from his home, he hits another car, and they spin, and he gets killed. So I got a death case on my hands, and it's against Ed Bailiff, whom I didn't know Ed very well at the time, and we're both signed up to be at the convention in the Bahamas for the trial of America or somebody. Anyhow, we're supposed to be down there, so my Toonie's down there, and Ed's wife's down there. Where are the guys? So these guys are following this death case. I'm trying because Howard Young knew about it, and so we try that. But you talk about you don't know what's going to happen. I think I got the case okay. The funniest thing in that case in the whole trial, they let the schools out, and the courtroom was packed. The schools, the teachers thought this was educational. And my God, they had that courtroom full every time. You had to be, and they wouldn't leave at lunch hour because they'd lose their seat.
And did you hate that, all those people there to watch?
No, I loved it. I loved it. This is great. But I was going to tell you about that. But I forgot. I lost the...
Well, tell me, I remember you telling me that early in your career you were kind of thrown into the courtroom.
Yeah.
Kind of early on, right?
My dad died. I was only with him 2 years.
Okay.
And we had 30 cases for State Farm.
Yeah.
And that was one of the main clients. And my dad said, now when I die, he said, they'll be very nice, but the day after the funeral, they'll come in and ask for the files. So don't you figure on having a file. He said, that's the way it's going to be. So you better hit it because I'm not very well. And I knew he wasn't. He had a heart problem. Okay. And so sure enough, that happened. And they came in to get the file, but I tried a case for the appraisers, adjusters. I tried one. I lost damn few cases, but I learned a good lesson. It was Christmas. He'd been to a Christmas party, and he's totally wrong at everything, and he was drunk. And the company said, try it. I said, try it. What can I try? Give me a break.
Defend that, right?
Yeah, how you defend that? Well, I did the morning trot at lunch. He goes out. He comes in drunk. He's flat drunk. When he comes at 1 o'clock, he's
Your
just
client?
my client.
Oh no.
I learned one thing: go with the client. Don't let him have lunch
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Attorney Miss.
Keep the client close to you.
Yeah.
Or someone you trust.
Yeah, or someone you trust. But that went bad everywhere, and the judge finally said, "Charlie, you did a good job. You didn't have much to work with." But anyhow, then I did a couple more for him. Evidently, I'd done all right because they said, "Give him a chance. Just give him a chance." So the guy comes in, and he says, "Well," he said, "you know, we're here ready to pick up the files, but the adjusters think a lot of you, and they think you're going to be a good lawyer, and they said to give you a chance now. So here's what I'm going to do. You can be our lawyer, and the first case you lose, you're done. What do you think of that?" I said, "Couldn't be better." Couldn't be better. And in 2 years, I had the 7 surrounding counties. I had all of them. And then all of a sudden, they're calling me a defendant's lawyer. I don't want to be a defendant's lawyer. But it's so easy to defend, I could hardly sleep at night. The way I could take a trial away from somebody who had money really working. You know, just I find that they're not, well, I don't know. I don't think there are very many good defendants lawyers. I really don't. They got their little routine, and I don't think they sweat it. They don't have to sweat it. They don't have to find the people are going to testify. You got everything done for them, and they walk in there and can do the same thing for 20 years. Well, it's those guys that I like to go against. I'm going to change it for them. But it is 10 times easier to defend a case than be a plaintiff. Plaintiff lawyers don't last very long unless they're good. You know, you better be pretty good in the courtroom if you're plaintiffs, because you don't get paid. You lose, you know. And so that was my thought on that. But yep. Okay, you got another subject?
I do, and I'll introduce it this way. I remember when my daughter was in 4th grade, and she had to do a report on a famous Hoosier, and she did her report on Ryan White and asked me about it, and I knew Bob at the time, and when I told her, I said, "You remember Mr. Johnson?" And she said, "Of course, you know, yeah, I remember Mr. Johnson." His mentor was Ryan White's lawyer, and she thought that was incredibly cool. We all did.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, you had George C. Scott, you know, play you in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, how did that case come to you? How did you get involved?
Well, I did a case for I can't think of her name now. Amy, yeah. Amy, and she was a beautiful girl, and she got it by getting a shot, and it had the AIDS virus.
She was a hemophiliac, right?
Yeah, I think I know Ryan was, but I think she was a hemophiliac.
She got a transfusion.
That was it.
Yeah.
Well, that's like thousands died. You know, she was one of the thousands. Because if you were a hemophiliac, write it down. You're going to die. You know, at that time, and it was they had nothing for it at that time. But anyhow, the guy with the big mustache did her interview. He's always on TV. Geraldo. He did it at the a hotel in town. He had a crowd there, and she didn't bother to tell me, so I didn't even know about it. But I read about it the next day, you know, and so anyhow, that's how Ryan came in. They heard about it, that I was representing Amy, and Amy had a nice husband, but he was working as a store clerk at night, putting boxes up, and I finally got disgusted. I'm going around trying to do things about AIDS, and the health officer, the state health officer, I finally called him and I said, hey, I'm working my ass off for no money and you're sitting there not doing a damn thing, sitting on your ass. I've had enough of this. I said, I'm going to go on TV tonight. I'm going to tell them we need a new health officer. I said, or else you're going to help me. You got the picture? He got the picture. I said, Amy needs a job. I said, she's fabulous to go around talking and telling about AIDS and what about it. And she needs a weekly income, and you need to do something for her. And so he did. And but anyhow, that's how Jeannie knew about that. So Jeannie and Ryan came in, and they told me their story. And I said, talk to the principal. This is ridiculous. What do you mean you can't go to school? Because we had this 4-tiered statute, and the first part of it is anyone with a communal disease cannot be admitted to the classroom, words to that effect, unless, exception. If he's been examined by the state health officer, or the county health officer, each county, and found to be satisfactory for him to be admitted to the classroom, then he can be admitted. And so I thought, this is ridiculous. So I told him, and she said that they told him that it didn't make any difference what he did. This is about 3 days before school opens, so it's August. And I said, did you talk to the principal? Oh, the principal's the one, and well, mainly it was the principal. And anyhow, they said, and you can't fight this. It's going to take a lot of money to fight it. He's not going to get in the classroom ever. And I thought, well, now, this is getting, tell me more, it's one of those things. Tell me more. And so finally I said, well, I think this case take to federal court, because we can just get a ruling right away, because this is obviously doesn't meet the standard. And so he'd already been, I sent him, I think, to this, anyhow, he'd been examined, a health officer. He said he should be admitted to the classroom. And so I'm driving to Indianapolis with Jeannie and Ryan and picked them up, and we went over there, and all of a sudden I parked the car and everybody's swarming to the courthouse. And I said, I want to get this thing over. There's some a good case going on, and I want to see who it is. That's a true story. I said, we're going to be quick with this one. I want to see this other case. I find out it's my case. I got the judges there. We're in, and they have their yearly retained lawyer there, and he wants him to do the 4-step process about the school nurse examining, and then you go to the principal, and then you go to somebody else, and you finally get to where you get to have a trial. I'm arguing that school's starting in 2 days. He's been examined. He should be admitted by the state. All the requirements have been made. Why would you put him through this stupid process that's supposed to be to help the child, and all it does is hurt the child? I said, great legislatures to devise this. And I said, it's crazy. And I just think it's your job. You're the head man, and you can fix this just overnight. And he goes to school in a day or two. And then so he makes this other plea back there. And so he rules against me. And he knows I'm mad. And but the funny thing is, now this breaks up, and now we got all the press and everywhere. It came out of the woodwork there. And I haven't talked to Jeannie. Jeannie's over somewhere else, and some reporter asked her, what do you think of the judge? And she says, he's a wimp. And that hit the papers. Oh, God. it can only happen to me. And of course, they thought I put her up to it. I wasn't within 20 feet of her. She got out there. And they got,
Once again, never let your clients out of your sight.
oh, I liked it really. but anyhow, the thing is, and I tell the judge, my last words to him, Judge, with this ruling, the snow will fall before this kid gets in school. Think about it. And I walk out of the courtroom. And the first time we got him in school, the snow did fall. And I thought that was I'm a prophet. But yeah, that was
that one of the first cases that the media really got? I mean,
yeah.
What were you conscious of what was going on with the media at that time?
Oh, I knew as soon as I got in that courtroom, I got a tiger by the tail. I knew that instantly, and I thought this is going to be, because that's AIDS was everybody's mind, afraid to get it because you're going to die. You know, it's not like you got the virus. It might get well. You're going to die. It was a very serious thing, and then I worked with it enough with Amy that I was pretty much up on AIDS and outspread and everything, and.
You were, I remember, you being on Nightline at one point with Ted Koppel. You remember that?
No.
Yeah.
I remember.
I was on so many things. The one I remember, I'm riding down at 5 o'clock in the morning to Indianapolis to go to some studio, and they asked me to do an interview, They just wanted to interview me and drive down to the station. And I'm driving down there, and Judy said, "Why are we doing this?" You know, I said, "I don't know." I said I'd do it. So we're doing it. I get there, and I said, "Well, it's going to be a debate. You've got a debate coming up with a guy who says that he shouldn't be admitted to school." And Donnelly, remember the guy named Donnelly? He was a big newsman at the time, probably number one. And the other fellow, I can't remember his name, he still is one of the scholars, still quoted a lot. I forget his name. But anyhow.
So you were really fighting like a disinformation campaign, weren't you?
Yeah.
To try and explain.
Try and explain how it is and what should be. You know.
You could not get AIDS by touching another person who had it.
That's right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a guy down there in North Carolina that said it's an airborne disease. You know. But anyhow, I'm debating this guy, and I kind of let him have it because he was wrong, and I just pointed out. And but I go in there, and I'm sitting there in a chair, and here's the TV. Judy's sitting in the background, and one guy wanting to sleep. He didn't want to be there that early. But he woke up and pretty soon he sees what's going on. So we're debating, and then I get a debate's over, and then the other two guys joined with me. And I thought, well, that's good. Convinced them anyhow. And he said, wait, when it was over, he wanted to talk to me. I said, sure. And but you know, this is still, there's nothing going on, you know, just early in the morning. And so I wait, and he comes on, couldn't have been nicer. And this was Huntley. And he said that, just want to talk to you, you saved the show. He says, this was the worst show going till you got on. He said, it was about the budget and nobody cared. And he says, you saved the show for me. And can't thank you enough. And that was the end of that conversation.
Now, when we got here, you told me, but you didn't give me all of the details. You said that there's a good story you've got about you making the court hold hands.
Oh, that's not none of that. I'll tell you how this happened. I'm trying a case up in near LaPorte, Gary, Indiana. And I have a friend I went to law school with. I'm about a 2-year lawyer at this time. And he hadn't been in the courtroom yet. And I said, you're not doing anything, are you? He said, hell no. I said, well, come on over and sit in with me. And because I was up there alone, I had room have somebody there. I said, you might as well see what the courtroom is. So he says, okay. So he comes in, he sits down. He doesn't know anything about the case at all. But he's sitting there with me, and so we're trying a case, and I was trying it against the bear. He was known as the bear, gruff guy, real gruff, and just a jerk. And I told him on Friday that if I don't have this settlement by Friday at noon, we're going to trial. And the case was $10,000 I wanted. And my client is a young guy. He's walking along, and they got the boards, so they got a construction inside there, and the wind blows the board over, hits him, knocks him down. No bones broken or anything, but he went to a chiropractor 3 times.
Sounds like a good case.
Yeah. It wasn't good then, but he got better. and so this bears it then, and I'd object, and he'd and say the same thing again. And that goes on the first day, and I let it go. And the second day, Jim says, why don't you do something? I said, not yet. I said, it'll happen. You'll know. And he did it about up till just before noon of the second day, about the 4th or 5th time that morning when he did it. And man, he does it one more time. I get up, knock a chair down. When I get up, go around there, you are never going to overrule and do this to this judge. You dishonored him. In this courtroom is never, ever going to happen again. And I'm screaming, just going crazy. And I'm there right in his nose. Boom, boom, boom. And the judge is going.
In front of the judge?
Oh, yeah. Hell yes. And the judge is wondering, this guy's crazy. And I'm just screaming, And I said, you got it? You got it straight? And I'm just screaming. And the jury is loving it. I could tell that. And I go back in a big damn huff and got to pick my chair up. That I kicked out of the way when I got up. And the poor old judge, he doesn't know what's happening. And he says, we're going to take a noon recess. That's all he knew to do, take a noon recess. And he comes back and he says, they're going to pay. I said, what do you mean they're going to pay? The case is over. They're going to pay. I said, what do you mean they're going to pay? The case was over Friday afternoon when he didn't correspond to my demand. I said, there's nothing to talk about. This big $10,000 demand. So we tried it. They gave me, what was it, for $10,000? They gave me $99,500.
99,000. So you beat it by 10-fold?
Yeah. Well, I lost it by 5 because one juror said, if we run over this, they can appeal, but if you stay under, they can't appeal. I don't know where that law came from. That was the law in the jury.
Sometimes those laws show up in deliberation.
Yeah, but we get $99,500.
And that was probably a huge verdict back then.
It was, yeah. And Jimmy says, "Hey, that PI works good."
Good, yeah. What? Give me an approximate year that this happened.
Well, that was a long. I suppose I've been practicing 5 years.
So this is sometime in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We should, when we get back to the office, we'll have an update on episode 3, what the $99,000 verdict would be. In today's term. Can our production staff, can you guys do a quick conversion? I think we're working on it.
What year did you get were you admitted to the bar?
Let's see. I think I've been to service. Got out of the service in 54, and I think I had 2 more years of law school to finish.
About 57, maybe.
Yeah, about that.
57, 58.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So that was fun.
I remember you telling me once about a verdict, an early verdict in Benton County, where you gave a really good opening statement. You remember that?
Is that where the jury came back with a verdict?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell the story. Tell
Well,
the
I don't
story.
remember that much about it. I know I gave a hell of an opening statement, and they take a recess. They knock on the door. They've already got a verdict.
Yeah, they buzzed the judge and said, "We've already reached a verdict."
After opening statements,
Yeah.
we don't need any evidence, Your Honor. Well, we've got the math, Mr. Vaughan. That was $1 million verdict in today's dollars. That $99,000 verdict.
Is that right?
Today's money it's about $1 million.
Yeah.
All right, Bob. What else we got to talk about?
Let's see if I got
We've
it.
already gone through your list.
I did the train, didn't I?
No. All right, we didn't. No.
Okay, yeah, you were suing the train.
No, you did not do the train. Do the train. Let's do the
Okay, I'll
train.
tell you about the train. There's a judgment with Finney in Delphi, Indiana, and it was a judgment for around 300, 400,000, somewhere in there. I don't even remember the amount. But he couldn't get paid, so he said, "Charlie, can you get this money? They won't pay me." And I said, they hadn't posted a bond. Railroad never posted a bond. And so I go over there right before closing, after the trial, and I've got a writ of some kind that I dreamed of. I don't know what the hell it was about, but it ends up that I've got the right to this money now. And I slip over to the judge secretly, and just before he closes, have him sign this writ. Go back to Lafayette, and we have a new sheriff. This is a great story. And the new sheriff, I walk in and said, "Sheriff, here's this writ." And I said, "At 10 o'clock, this is 8 o'clock in the morning. At 10 o'clock, I want you to be down to the railroad station because I'm going to take the James Whitcomb Riley train. I'm going to take it till I'm paid." He looks at me, "What do you mean?" He's scared to death. I said, "No, that's your job. That's all you got to do is we stop the train, we hold the train till they pay." Well, I didn't think they'd pay right on the spot, but that's what I told him. And so he gets nervous and he calls that bigger firm in Lafayette. They're 4 top lawyers over there. Calls me over and says, you need to come over here. There's some lawyers want to talk to you." And they said, "No, they're mad. They're stuffy guys." And they said, "What are you going to do with the train if you get it?" I said, "I'm going to open up the club car, invite all my friends." and they are really unhappy with me. And it kept going on. Everything they say, "Well, what about the post office?" I said, "The post office is obviously late. They won't miss it for a couple, 3 days. I don't care. That's why I'm taking the train." and it ends up with, I finally said, "Look, let's get it straight. This morning at breakfast, I told my kids, today Daddy's going to get you a train." And by God, I am. And I get up and walk out. And luckily the sheriff's down there with me. By this time, the papers got notice of it. So Bob Kriebel with the Journal Courier, he's there to watch the scene. See? And he sees the sheriff, we stopped the train. It stopped, and I'm on my train, And I'm and they're saying, "How long do you think you're going to keep it?" I said, "Well, first I got to open up the club car."
That's right. Call my friends.
Call my friends. I said, "A day or two we'll be here," but I said, "You better pay it right now." "Well, we can't possibly pay it right now." And the time's going, and pretty soon it's about a half hour, and they say, "Well, we can't get you the money right now. You know it better than that." I said, "Well, I'll give you a chance. You got to have it by 12 tomorrow noon." And I said, "Or else I'm taking the train. Next time I won't even talk to you. I'm never going to give you the train." I'm being totally obnoxious. And so it comes out, "Modern day Jesse James takes train."
That's fantastic.
That was a headline. And it went worldwide. I mean, not worldwide, but United States wide. and all the guys I went to law school with, they're calling me loving the story, see, because he wrote up a great story about it, and uh, and I did get the payment, and but it was so funny. Just
Bob, you ever taken a train?
I've never taken a train.
No, I usually just try to get. Usually just trying to go for a check, but you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to take a train.
Yeah, take the whole damn train.
Well, here, Mr.
Let's
Vaughn,
see.
we only got a couple minutes left. I want
I got
Okay.
a couple of things.
Oh.
Actually,
Okay.
jump in there, Bob.
if you don't mind.
No, please. That's why you're here.
Yeah. So, Mr. Vaughan,
Bob Johnson's show.
and it. You talked about athletics a little bit. I don't think many people know this about you, but you were what, a basketball player?
Mm-hmm.
And did you play high school, college, or?
Yeah, I played 3 years varsity for the high school at Jeff, and my junior year, we were picked the best team in the nation by Life magazine, and we had a 6-page spread. And my senior, and it got beat by Rossville.
Your junior year?
Yeah, my
Oh.
junior year.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
it's Rossville.
Yeah.
They were tough back then.
They were tough.
Rossvillians.
Phil Buck was. They had 3 college players.
Oh man.
Yeah, and anyhow, then the next year I'm a senior, and we won it all, and we were first or second in the state the whole year, and that was
What year was that?
1948. That's the one date I remember. That's the one. That's the only thing I remembered my whole life.
And did you go to play on in college?
Yeah, then I played at Indiana for 2 years. And Branch and I didn't get along. I'd throw the ball behind my back and somebody didn't see it. Then he'd blame me. Well, if I hit him with it, I didn't think I should be blamed.
Wait a minute. You were doing behind the back passes
Oh, yeah.
on a team with Branch McCracken.
Yeah.
Who else was
It's
on
like
that
Allen
team?
Iverson of the 1950s.
Well,
You had some other players on there.
Bobby Masters was Mr. Basketball,
yeah.
and he was we were on the same team. But our
Jeff.
best, Jeff and
Was Bob Leonard down there too?
Leonard
Slick.
Slick was a year behind me, and freshmen couldn't play at IU. You had to be studying. You couldn't do it, but you could practice forever. You know, that was a dumb rule. They did away with that finally.
It's kind of the opposite now.
Yeah, isn't it? Isn't it the opposite?
Yeah.
But
And another thing, we're sitting here. We've got these statues of horses, and you've had these. Can you tell us a little about your love of horses and what you do there?
yeah, when my brother went in the service, I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and he had a horse, a spotted pony. It was a horse like big enough to be a horse, and so he went into service, and my twin sisters tried the horse once. They didn't want to ride the horse. Colleen, my sister, she didn't want to ride the horse either, and I got the horse. So I took up his horse, and I had a great friend named Paul Shue, who's in the Hall of Fame, and I was such a pest. He just kept helping me, you know, and he had me doing crazy things. But we'd have little shows, and I love that. I love the horse shows.
And you're a horse reiner, is that
Yeah,
called?
yeah.
What can you tell the audience what that is?
Yeah,
And
reining horses are like, if you've seen, what's the Yellowstone?
yes.
Those horses that go down and slide and pedal and stay in the ground. Well, I train them. I trained them, and then I've had trainers. I still have trainers.
Mr. Vaughan, can I ask you something? Because we're kind of running out of time.
Sure.
I want to ask you for the younger trial lawyers who are just coming out of school and learning how to do what they do. What advice do you have for them?
Well, I can't advise them much because they do everything on a computer, and I didn't have one. Start with that.
Yep.
My advice is, if you can't get a job, go to the prosecutor. At least you'll get in the courtroom, and you can, and nobody cares if you win or lose, but you're getting some experience. And if you pay attention, you can learn a lot because you're in the courtroom. There's a lot to be learned. But you got to try to find. If you want to be a trial lawyer, you got to try to find out some way, because people don't just flock to your door say you want to be a trial lawyer.
They do not.
Not really. No, that doesn't happen. So you got to go where you either get with a firm that'll let you do it, or if nothing else, go to the prosecutor's office. Get in the courtroom if you want to be a trial lawyer. Now there's so many other things where they make money, and I've learned a couple of things that are different. That's good and bad. The worst thing when I started, I did with Cable Ball, I was trying a case, and after we got through, he submitted 350 instructions. 350. We were there. This is one way to say negligence, another way, and good and bad, back and forth. So the greatest thing to my trial practice was that, thank God, they got uniform instructions. Because I'd be there at 3 in the morning. Cable, he does these 350. Said, I'll have a few in the morning. He had 100 in the morning. And the judge just, I said, wait a minute, Judge, I can't take this. We got scheduled final arguments and the like, and I haven't had any sleep anyhow. This is more than I can. Come on, let's get fair. He looks at Cable and he says, 10. We'll look at 10. You poured him out here. Give me your 10 and I'll rule. And so, but can you imagine that? It was just, hell, you had another trial coming up.
Yep.
And then that was the best thing trial lawyers have ever done. And the trial lawyers were behind that. They promoted that, and it was a great move. That's the best move I've seen in there. I think the trial lawyers have done a lot of great things. And I think mainly because you meet other trial lawyers. I have yet to see one that wouldn't help you, if you ask.
That's right.
They really have good connection, good, just great atmosphere. And I always like to be with trial lawyers. And I got a lot to learn. I asked Howard Young a lot. He always wanted to know every case I had, and we were just close as could be. And he'd tell me about his cases, and I'd give him my idea. I don't know what he thought of them, because we didn't exactly try them the same. But he was pretty cagey too. Well, Howard Young was good. He was a very good lawyer, but a likable guy, very likable, and but he was good to me. I could call him anytime on anything, and he gave me a cross-examination of photographs. If I had to have for the next day, he stayed on the phone an hour telling me what I can ask, what I can do, because I thought they'd been played with, And I had one example.
So photographs were like your technology back then.
Yeah, that was our technology, photographs.
All right. Well, Bob, I want to thank you for guesting on this episode of Legal Legends from the Hoosier State.
Thank you, Joe.
And Mr. Vaughan, on behalf of all the plaintiffs' lawyers and ITLA, thank you for everything you've done. And
well, I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And thank you for being on the show. And as we sign off, just want to remind everybody, whatever they do, to take care of their shoes. Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. All right.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
There wasn't a chance to throw it in earlier, so I had to get it in. That has to make it in. It's another good fish line.